Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the what if. Ichigo woke as the sun's first rays poured through the window. He felt completely relaxed and found that he had awoken with a smile on his face. The cause was instantly revealed as he looked down to the goddess still asleep in his arms. As Ichigo basked in the feeling of her unclothed skin against his, images of the night before flooded his consciousness. He could remember each touch, each kiss, each taste with vivid clarity, yet one thought stood out above the rest. She loves me. Ichigo could neither explain nor deny the absolute joy, the peaceful solace that overcame him due to this fact, but he embraced it fully. He began to think about what this actually meant. Yes, they were in love, but what about her clan? Ichigo was aware that he was known as a commoner, and Yoruichi was in line for clan leader. What did this mean for their future, exactly? The future. What exactly do I want for the future? What does she want for the future? I'd actually love to. He cut his train of thought. Surely there was no way her clan would ever allow what he truly wanted. Look, you both just said you love each other. Be happy with that for now. And he was happy about it. More than he'd ever believed possible. Still, now that he had her, he knew he could never face losing her. If the thought of losing Yoruichi before was painful, now it was downright excruciating. Filing thoughts about their future away for later, he relaxed and simply enjoyed the embrace of the woman he loved. Soon, the subject of his thoughts stirred awake, softly groaning as she stretched her muscles and looked up at him. Smiling at her sleepy grin, he said, "Good morning, beautiful. Sleep well." Yoruichi nodded. "Very well. I did, Taiko," she smirked as she crawled further on top of him. "You certainly helped me get a good night's sleep. I could get used to nights like that," she purred into his ear. "Is that so?" Ichigo asked smugly. Now that they had expressed their love, he felt he could finally really play along with her teasing games. Rolling over so that he was on top of her, pressing his body closely onto hers, he whispered into her ear, "Oh kitten, if you like that, just wait until you see what I'm like in the morning." He enjoyed the gasp he heard and the tightening of her muscles beneath him as he lightly grazed the ear he was whispering into with his teeth. My, Barry Taiko. You've certainly come around, haven't you? Where is my shy little blusher that I see every morning?" She smirked in a slightly breathless manner. She loved his blushes, but she was not about to complain about this new side to Ichigo. This version that had amazed her last night. The pure love and adoration that had emanated almost overwhelmingly from Ichigo had filled her with a strange combination of both pride and humility. Yoruichi was finding that she enjoyed the many sides to the man above her. Ichigo chuckled, "He's not gone anywhere, but your love made all the difference, Yoruichi." He stared into her eyes as his hand came up to brush her cheek. "I know most men would love to be with any woman, but I always swore that I'd never give that part of myself to anyone but the woman that I loved, and that loved me back. I am really glad that I kept my promise. You are more than worth the wait," he finished with a small kiss. Yoruichi smiled, blushing lightly as she looked into his eyes. Ichigo made everything different. She heard compliments from men every day, but his meant so much more. He wasn't complimenting her looks, her status, or her powers. He was talking about her, as Yoruichi the woman, not the princess of the Shihoin clan or goddess of flash. On top of all of that, she felt a little swell of pride, hearing that he thought she was worth the wait. While she couldn't undo her painful past, she knew that she too had found someone worth waiting for. In her case, it was simply waiting for someone to show her that sometimes, one can begin to move from the shadows of what once was and live for what is. Kissing him back, she softly whispered, "I love you, Ichigo." Grinning in a way that she easily recognized from her own expressions, he replied, "I love you too." However, he paused, dragging his fingertips across the soft, warm skin of her toned abdomen. "Right now I really, really want you." As he finished his lusty whisper in her ear, he nipped her chin with his teeth while playfully yet very gently digging his fingernails into the soft flesh below them. Yoruichi was instantly on fire. Ichigo's words, his tone, and the way he touched her. "Oh Ichigo, you had better get ready." Giving him a predatory grin that made his eyes widen in excitement, Yoruichi moved so fast that Ichigo found himself looking up into her eyes as she had flipped them over. After breaking off a searing kiss, she positioned herself directly above him. Lying together and catching their breath while staring at the ceiling, Ichigo chuckled, definitely liking mornings a lot more. Is this what you meant by training, sensei? Yoruichi grinned, still panting, just a small taste, my prized pupil. There is so much to learn, it may take quite a while for you to get it all. She finished with a suggestive wink. Quite a while, I like the sound of that. Grinning, he chastely kissed her lips and replied, you have me for the rest of my existence, Yoruichi. I look forward to all my goddess has to teach me. Ichigo wondered if Yoruichi knew how serious he was. Sure, he was young, but that didn't mean he was completely naive. He knew that Shinigami lives were measured in centuries and millennia, and was okay with that. More than okay, he was thrilled at the idea of being with Yoruichi for so long. Her face froze, the rest of his existence. Does he really mean that? I can't get my hopes up on that too soon. He's far too young to understand forever, isn't he? Yoruichi pushed the thoughts to the back of her mind. She could be patient. They were in love, and both knew it. That was enough for her for the time being. She knew that Ichigo did not say things lightly, or without care, but when talking of forever, he simply had no perspective. She would take her time in sorting out what he meant. Ignoring the first part of his comment for now, she replied, now that's the attitude I like to hear. Turning to get up from the bed, she asked him, are you ready to start your first day as Taiko? Smirking again, Ichigo got up behind her, shunpoing to the door with her in his arms, her back to his front. Almost, goddess of mine. I think I need a little more training this morning, he huskily said as he placed her palms against the door and gently bit the skin on her neck, causing her to moan in anticipation. They both grinned as the same thought occurred to them, this is going to be a damn fine day. Later, as the two lovers made their way to the dining room, they realized that it was still somewhat early. Good, Ichigo thought. Upon entering the dining room, they discovered that the Vizards were already seated, each eating various dishes. Morning guys, he said as he sat down next to Yoruichi, grabbing some food from the array in front of him. Mornin' Cap'n, Shinji replied with a smug grin. Ichigo raised an eyebrow as a variety of grunts and greetings came from the rest of the group, yet all seemed to be grinning smugly too. Must be excited about today. After a quiet breakfast, the group departed for the barracks. On the way, the conversation quickly caught Ichigo's attention. Lisa, being the most forward of the group, turned to Yoruichi. Yoruichi, I think you may want to have a repairman come check on one of the rooms in your mansion. Oh? Yoruichi asked, concerned. Did something happen? Is everyone okay? Well, it's actually Ichigo's room that we're concerned about, she said as both Ichigo's and Yoruichi's facial expressions froze. Lisa continued in an innocent voice, his door seems to be really bothering his sleep, maybe even giving him strange dreams. We heard it bumping a lot this morning, even pounding at some points. This seemed to really affect the captain as we heard a lot of loud moaning and a few squeals. Did you notice anything strange when you woke up, Kurosaki Taiko? Yoruichi couldn't help but be impressed. Not once did Lisa's expression shift or crack during her teasing. She turned to look at Ichigo, whose face could not have been more red. She could also see that the rest of the group was having a hard time keeping a straight face. Wanting to chuckle, Yoruichi knew that if she could trust anyone with this secret, it would be the current company. What? I don't know what you're talking about, Ichigo stammered. Oh crap. Oh, I guess I was mistaken then, Lisa said, still using her innocent voice. I guess you didn't need a little more training this morning. As she said this, she used her fingers to make air quotations. The rest of the group, including Yoruichi, couldn't hold it in any longer, and everyone but Ichigo roared in laughter. Standing there with his mouth wide open, Ichigo had no clue what to say. He was rescued somewhat though, as Yoruichi walked up to him with a devilish grin and put her arm through his. What can I say? I have to make sure that your captain has a wide variety of skills. Though I must say, he is quite an impressive student. Everyone continued to laugh as Ichigo's blush seemed to deepen, if it was at all possible. Though, we would prefer it if this weren't publicized, she said, using a slightly more serious tone now. Of course not. Shinji started. We wouldn't want to ruin any chances of Cap'n getting more training, now would we? More laughs came, and Ichigo just continued to walk forward, keeping his eyes on the road ahead. Don't worry, though, Shinji continued. We're pretty good at keeping secrets. Plus, we don't want the mighty Shihoin clan's training secrets to get out. Yoruichi snorted at this, quickly regaining control of the giggle that burst out of her at that comment. Are we to understand that you two are now in a relationship? Hachi asked calmly. Of course, Ichigo cut in. I'd never be with someone just for the hell of it. I love her, he finished in a whisper. Yoruichi blushed. I'll never tire of hearing that. And he said it in front of the squad. But do keep it quiet. I don't want her clan trying to keep me away because I don't suit her status, Ichigo grumbled. Yoruichi's eyebrow shot up. Is that something he's actually been worried about? I might have to get Isshin to talk to him. Don't worry, Ichigo, we know. While we are very aware of your character, you must admit, that was an impossible teasing opportunity to pass up, Rose said kindly. Yeah, come on. Rukia is supposed to be meeting us at the barracks today, as well as Byakuya and Captain Yukitaki. We have a lieutenant to test, Ichigo muttered. As they approached the barracks, he saw his raven-haired lieutenant to be standing at the entrance, accompanied by the two captains who were invited. Morning, midget, ready for your big debut. Baka, I've been fighting at and doing lieutenant-level duties for years. My real job would be to make sure you don't embarrass yourself, Rukia scoffed. Looks like you have a bit of work cut out for you, Lisa said slyly. I would have to agree, Byakuya added. Oi, I don't embarrass anyone, Ichigo shouted over the laughter that ensued. Now shut it and let's find somewhere we can get this going. Shinji decided to lead the way, taking the group out to the training grounds in the back of the squad compound. As they stepped onto the training grounds, Ichigo could feel Rukia's tension in her reiatsu. She's probably worried about Byakuya watching. This is her big chance to finally get him off her ass and to start trusting her power more. Handing his Haori to Yoruichi, Ichigo led Rukia out to the middle of the field. Turning to her, he quietly said, "This is not going to be a long, drawn-out test of your knowledge or skill. In my eyes, you passed long ago. This is your chance to show your power, as well as your level of cooperation between you and your Zanpakuto. No holding back. Are you ready?" As he finished, he removed Zangetsu from his back, allowing the white wrappings to fall away. Nodding, Rukia drew her sword and crouched, saying, "My, Soda no Shirayuki." As she pointed the tip of her sword at Ichigo, she wasted no time and called out, "Some no mai Tsukushiro." Seeing a white circle form under his feet, Ichigo shun-pioed away before a massive pillar of ice erupted up to the sky. The chill he felt emanating from it was far more potent than he remembered. Knowing she was trying to get him off balance, he flashed behind her, swinging downwards. Barely catching Zangetsu's large blade with her own, Rukia struggled momentarily against Ichigo's overwhelming speed and strength. Managing to push him off, she flashed back several paces and called out, "Tsugi no mai Hakuren." As she tapped 4 different spots on the ground in front of her, bright white lights began to glow. When she touched the last spot, she pointed her sword's tip at Ichigo again, unleashing a massive wave of snow and ice. Dodging the blast, Ichigo was nearly caught unawares as Rukia had used Hakuren to distract him long enough to flash behind him and attempt a vicious strike. Catching her blade with his in time, Ichigo was pleasantly surprised at the massive strength behind the swing. Rukia is stronger than a lot of the men here. She's closer to the level of a captain than a lieutenant. The fight went on like this for several minutes. Rukia was displaying an impressive show of swordsmanship and battle prowess. Her speed, while no match for Ichigo in his current state, was also quite impressive. While Ichigo was impressed, Rukia had not managed to get a clean hit on him yet. Still, somehow it feels like she's holding back. Maybe I need to just poke her pride a little bit to get her to go all out. Ichigo straightened up as they had just separated after a good block from her. "That all you got, midget? Maybe I should get Renji to come help teach you a few things." Ichigo started to smirk when her eyes widened, then narrowed dangerously. However, he couldn't help his apprehension when her scowl morphed into an evil grin. Smirking back, Rukia said deviously, "You want it, you got it." Bringing her sword horizontal to the ground in front of her, the long white ribbon on the end of the grip began to straighten out horizontally as well when she said, Bankai. This was followed by a massive explosion of blindingly white Reiatsu, blowing dust up from the ground, shielding her from view. When the dust settled, everyone who was gathered stared in awe as Rukia stood in a pure white kimono, with a pale blue ribbon around her middle. Her violet eyes seemed to glow as she held her weapon in front of her. Ichigo couldn't help but to grin in pride. She did it. Hell yeah, the midget got her Bankai. Little did Ichigo know that Rukia and her weapon would soon wipe the grin off. This weapon was different, though. While the pure white blade was still there, the ribbon that flowed behind it had now solidified into a long, white, icy cylinder. Grabbing both the hilt of her sword, as well as the base of the cylinder, Rukia twisted her wrists in opposite directions, creating a loud snick. Ichigo watched in awe as the white cylinder shattered, with larger pieces of ice falling to the ground revealing a crystal-clear, shorter version of Rukia's white sword. As she turned the blade, the light refracted, throwing rays of color on the ground. Looking up, she softly said, Megami Soda no Shirayuki. Before Ichigo could regain his composure and react, Rukia flashed behind him, swinging the new, nearly invisible sword. Ichigo wanted to grimace, as he felt the blade scratch along his arm. To his surprise, it didn't draw blood. Damn, my Reiatsu makes my skin tougher than a hollow's hierro. His thoughts, however, came to a halt as he felt his arm getting colder. Looking back down, he saw a patch of ice quickly spreading on his upper arm, past the elbow, cutting off its mobility. Shunpoing back, he used the back of Zangetsu to break the ice that had formed on his arm. Continuing her assault, Rukia pointed the white blade at Ichigo, calling out, Nader. The blade glowed and almost blindingly bright as a massive wave of pure white snow erupted from it towards Ichigo. The effect was clear to all watching as the wave of snow spread wider and wider, cutting off Ichigo's field of vision. Rukia took this time to kneel down, stabbing the nearly invisible blade into the ground, while pointing the white blade at Ichigo. Knowing that she was facing a now or never moment, she raised her Reiatsu as high as it would go and took a deep breath. Kori no Akari, she called out, surprising Ichigo as long, icy spikes shot out of the ground underneath him. He jumped up, barely avoiding them, only to see Rukia grin as she lifted the clear sword from the ground and pointed both blades at Ichigo. Hakuren. Ichigo was shocked to see not only two huge streams of ice and snow hurtling their way towards him, but the sheer power that the young Kuchiki was exhibiting. Holy shit, midget is strong. Stunned by the sight, Ichigo's senses returned just a moment too late and he felt himself get driven to the ground by sharp shards of ice and buried by a huge amount of freezing snow. After a quick Reiatsu burst to clear himself of most of the snow, Ichigo got up and began to brush himself off completely. Before he got too far, he noticed a sharp sting on his forearm. Looking down, he saw a very small drop of blood. He looked up, smiling widely at the completely still Rukia. Congrats, Kuchiki Fukuteku. Turning, Ichigo was glad to see the stunned faces of both Byakuya and Yukitake. Both faces quickly morphed into looks of intense pride, causing Rukia to blush slightly. The blush was intensified as she heard her brother say, You have certainly made the Kuchiki clan quite proud today, Rukia. I can tell you that I am quite proud myself. Well done. Captain Yukitake joined in, telling her, I always knew you had it in you, Rukia. Congratulations, you deserve this. Rukia stood there in awed silence for a moment, before bowing low and saying, Thank you Ni-sama, thank you Yukitake Taiko. She beamed as both again congratulated her before saying that they had to return to their squads. After Byakuya and Yukitake left to tend to their divisions, the rest of the group made their way back into the barracks and found a room with a large, low table in it. Everyone made their way to it, sitting around in a circle, with Yoruichi on Ichigo's right and Rukia on his left. Once everyone had gathered, Ichigo turned to his left. All right, first things first. Rukia, why the hell didn't you tell me you had achieved Bankai? That was so badass. What all can it do? Rolling her eyes, the young Kuchiki could not help the smile that spread across her face at Ichigo's description. Because you didn't ask, Baka. You don't go around parading your Bankai for everyone to see. Did you think I just sat on my ass the whole time you were gone? As far as what it can do, I'll just say that my Shikai allows me control over an ice and snow mixture. However, when in Bankai, Shirayuki allows me the power to control them separately with the two blades. As you saw, this allowed me to create different combinations to suit my circumstances. Nodding, Ichigo quickly caught on that she wanted to keep her Bankai's powers as tightly under wraps as possible. Changing tack, he asked, "Okay, did you bring the forms that I asked for?" Nodding, she passed him the envelope she had been carrying this morning when they had first arrived. As he opened it, Ichigo found several sheets of paper and a piece of wood that had an engraved flower attached to a strip of cloth. Good. Okay everybody, as you know, I have chosen Rukia to be my lieutenant for reasons I've already shared. Given her experience, and that she has not only achieved Bankai, but can also kick ass with it, I feel I made the right choice so, he said, turning to Rukia, "Rukia Kuchiki, do you accept the position as lieutenant of Squad 5? Hi, Rukia said confidently. She had been training for an opportunity like this for years, and now she had not only earned a promotion, but was able to prove her strength to her brother by kicking Ichigo's ass. Thank you, Baka. Tying the strap of cloth to her arm, Ichigo said, "You are hereby appointed to said position. I will sign the transfer forms today and you can deliver them after the meeting, so it will be official." Congratulations, Midget Fukuteku Ou. Ichigo rubbed his head as he could feel a knot rising from where his newly appointed pain in the lieutenant had hit him on the head. Rolling his eyes as everyone chuckled, he began, "Okay, now that that's taken care of, the next bit of business will be the renovations to the barracks. We have to get this place up and running. I know a few contractors. They could have this place up and running in less than a week," Yoruichi said, causing a few eyebrows to raise. "Okay, first, how could we actually pay for that, and second, how can you get them to finish it so fast?" Ichigo said. He'd never been in the construction business, but even he knew that a week was pretty impressive. "Every squad in the Gote 13 has a maintenance budget allowed to them," Rukia said. "And as far as for why they're so fast, well, do you expect anyone to not bust their ass for a noble goddess who bats her pretty eyes at them?" Shinji added. He knew the timeframes possible in Soul Society when the great noble clans wanted something done. Yoruichi smiled smugly while Ichigo's teeth gritted together. Something he was quickly learning about himself was that he was quite the jealous type, while both Zangetsu and Shiro seemed to agree with him quite loudly in his mind. Before he could say anything, Yoruichi told the group, "There are a few that my clan has used before that do quite a good job very quickly. Plus, since this would be mostly a restoration process, it shouldn't take that long." "Fine," Ichigo mumbled. "Now, we come to a couple of important issues, training and actually filling up the barracks. Rukia, while you are the lieutenant, the Vizards comprise a special combat and training unit within our squad. Aside from occasional advisement sessions with myself, those two areas will be under their guidance. They will run training of the squad and you will assist them. You will assist me in running the squad and they will assist you in that. Is that acceptable?" Rukia nodded. This was actually a good setup. She could focus on running the squad with Ichigo, while a group of extremely capable and experienced fighters would be overtraining. "We have to do all of our own recruiting, but before we go over recruitment methods, I want to let you all know about your own training," Ichigo said, causing surprised looks all around the table. "Don't look at me that way. While you are all incredible fighters, can a single one of you tell me that you've reached the highest level that you can?" Yoruichi smiled at the silence that was over the table. Ichigo is going to be a great captain. He considers way more than you'd think he would, and actually thinks out some of these decisions. Given that you are all so well trained already, there will be specific foci for you all, Ichigo said, wanting to see their faces at his next announcement. Ichigo paused for a moment, closing his eyes. "Zangetsu, Shiro, come on out." When he opened his eyes, he turned his head to see Zangetsu standing behind him on his right, and Shiro on his left. Turning to the Vizards, he said, "Shiro will be training you in further mastery and development of your hollow powers, as well as communication with the actual hollow spirits themselves. I get to show you what hollowification really means," Shiro cackled. He smirked even wider when he saw the uneasy looks on the faces around the table. Oh, calm the hell down. Kingy won't let you get hurt, I just have to show you how to do what he did. Nodding, Ichigo added, you guys helped me gain control over Shiro when I was going to be overwhelmed and helped me grow so much stronger. I want you all to have the chance to grow stronger too. He may be an asshole, but he's actually a damn good teacher. Ahem, Yoruichi said in an annoyed tone of voice. Don't worry, he's not the best teacher. I still have much to learn from the master, Ichigo said quickly, trying to appease his affronted sensei. As he heard snickers and chuckles around the table, Ichigo realized how he had phrased this and also what had been said this morning. Turning beet red, he began to stammer, damn it. I meant, well, he said, shutting up while the others excluding Rukia tried to contain their laughter. Looking to her, he muttered, don't ask. Turning back to the Vizards, Ichigo asked, is this acceptable? I think you'll be surprised what you haven't even tapped into yet. I definitely was. That sounds good, Cap'n, Kensai said. He, as well as most of the Vizards, actually looked forward to this. They remembered how difficult Ichigo was to deal with in his hollow form during his training with them. Gaining that type of knowledge and power was very appealing to them, especially when they thought back to their battering in the war. Turning to Rukia, he began, Rukia, your next step is to talk with Soda no Shirayuki. You need to work on mastering your Bankai. I'll be damned if your brother is the only captain whose lieutenant has a good control of Bankai. Zangetsu and I will provide whatever assistance we can, however, this is a path largely determined by you and her, he said, nodding at his materialized Zanpakuto spirit. Hi, she's told me there is still much to learn. We will be training hard, Rukia replied. Ichigo smirked, good, we will definitely have the strongest squad. We'll have to try and not make Squad 11 cry too hard. He paused as most around the table began to chuckle. But back to recruitment, we really have an opportunity here to do something great here, and I want the best recruits for this squad. However, we won't be scouting in the conventional way. Eyebrows around the table raised, with Rukia voicing, what exactly did you have in mind? Smiling, Ichigo said, I'm glad you asked. It's actually something that you'll be vital in helping with. While I want Hachi, Shinji, Rose, and Lisa to check the academy for good recruits, the rest of us will actually be going to the Rukongai with you to see what potential is out there. Some of the greatest Shinigami I've met have come from the Rukongai, and I will not rob them of their chance to make a better life just because of their social status. We recruit on potential, nothing else. Hi, that is a great idea. I know many places we can look, Rukia exclaimed. The Rukongai was a dear place to her heart. While she was incredibly grateful for her life as it was, she could never forget her roots. To hear Ichigo, a man who was like a brother to her and now her captain, not treat it as beneath him but as a place with equal opportunity to the Shinigami Academy, it filled her with pride. It wasn't really a surprise, but it made her proud, nonetheless. Damn, Barry never ceases to impress, Yoruichi thought with a smile. Taking charge, providing for the best interests of the squad and no discrimination against anyone. I'm not surprised, but damn it I'm proud. And, she continued thinking with a devious grin, he's all mine. Sounds good to us, Shinji said, while the rest of the group nodded or grunted their assent. He knew Ichigo was a good kid, but now he knew Ichigo had the makings of a great man. I gotta say, you're taking life as a captain by the horns. Good job kid, Kensai and Love grunted in agreement. Gee thanks, Ichigo mumbled. Damn, why is it that my whole squad can get me embarrassed but I can't get them? Might have to change this. Standing up, with the rest of the squad following suit, he said, so we know what the plan is. I want us to start this tomorrow. For today, I want all of you with Shiro. Even you, Rukia, I want to get a good feel of where everyone is, and make sure we knock any rust off. Sound good? Hi, hell yeah, Shiro said, maniacal grin on his face. Nobody dies, and nobody gets sent to 4th Division, Ichigo said to Shiro, who huffed in response. Before anybody could express their distaste with Ichigo's apparent lack of faith, he said, I haven't even seen our resurrection. Just trust me for today. However, if any of you can draw blood from him, you get first dibs on your room. This earned a few raised eyebrows, and a disbelieving look paired with an extended middle finger from Shiro. And what about me, Taiko? Yoruichi asked with a raised eyebrow and slight frown. Don't I get to do anything? He better be careful, I'll kick his ass if he tries to keep me on the sidelines. I was a captain too, damn it. Ichigo turned to her with a smile. Actually, Lady Yoruichi, I was hoping you'd accompany me today. Time for me to make her blush for once. As she raised her eyebrow in a questioning look, he said as innocently as he could muster, I was hoping you'd help me see what was making my door act so strangely today. It was really loud there for a while. I thought we might see about getting something for that loud squealing sound. The look on her face was priceless. Eyes wide and mouth slightly agape, she looked dumbstruck. The sounds of choking and coughing erupted around the room as Yoruichi saw the vizards all trying to cover their mouths to stifle their laughter. What? He actually said that? He's not supposed to get me. Oh Ichigo, this should be fun. She didn't get a chance to respond as Shiro appeared next to Ichigo, leaning on his shoulder laughing loudly. I'm so proud of you, King. What's wrong Queen Kitty-chan? Cat got your tongue. Shiro had rolled off of Ichigo's shoulder and onto the floor at this point. Narrowing her eyes, Yoruichi said, that's not a bad idea, Ichigo. Sometimes, with noisy doors and such, you have to beat them into submission. I may even have to get some ropes to tie it down while it gets pounded into submission. Actually, that sounds kinda hot, but Berry Boy will never get the last word in teasing. Sure enough, Ichigo sprouted quite an impressive blush as his eyes bugged and his jaw dropped. Everyone was now laughing hysterically, save for Rukia. She was now looking like she was beginning to understand what was going on, and Ichigo quickly shook his head at her, don't ask. Please. With that, he dismissed the squad, grabbed Yoruichi's hand and nearly shun-PO'd out of the room, followed closely by Zangetsu. As they were heading down the corridor to the entrance of the barracks, Ichigo dragged Yoruichi into a room on the side. Zangetsu, can we have a moment, please? Of course, Ichigo, he said as he stepped back into the corridor. Once in the room, Ichigo picked up and pressed Yoruichi against the wall, wrapping her legs around his waist and pressing his body to hers. Leaning down, he gently bit her neck for a moment before whispering, you are too good at what you do, kitten. You always get me blushing, but you know what? He continued nibbling her neck, one hand holding hers above her head, the other traveling over her heavily breathing body while his hips held her against the wall. Yoruichi was torn between melting into his embrace and picking up where they had left off that morning. Holy shit, Barry is getting good. Barry is getting so good. He learns fast, but this, enthusiasm is incredible. What's that? She managed to gasp. I think I'm getting good at it too, he lustily whispered in her ear, and with a final wet kiss to her neck and a firm squeeze of her rear, he let her go and walked out of the room with a smug smirk on his face. Come on, Yoruichi-sama, he called once he was in the hallway. Wait, what, son of a bitch, Yoruichi shouted internally as she shakily regained her balance. He had gotten her very worked up, and then left. Oh hell no, she thought. Stepping out into the hallway, she started walking with Ichigo. Not even looking up at him, she growled, oh Barry, soon enough you'll know why I'm the master. She continued walking, sashaying her hips with a bit extra sway. Zangetsu chuckled as he walked alongside Ichigo, who was catching up to Yoruichi. Anyways, Ichigo began, hoping to avoid any wrath from the violet-haired Flash Master. The reason I didn't have anything for you to do in the squad is because I didn't want to put you on the spot. You have so many duties and tasks of your own and you've done so much for me, saving, training, helping, loving me. I just don't want to seem ungrateful or burdensome by asking you for more. I never want you to feel like anything less than the goddess you are, he finished softly. Raising an eyebrow, she thought, that's not enough to save you for earlier, but it's very sweet. You would never be a burden, love. I would be happy to help as I am able to. I love being a part of your life, just as I love you being a part of mine. Anyways, where are we going? I noticed you're not including yourself in the training, she said, confused as to what his plans actually were. Ichigo rubbed the back of his neck. I was actually hoping to get your and Zangetsu's help in making a seal on my powers and to train with them reduced. I figure it would make a lot of the Gote 13 feel better if I had a sensible Reiatsu. Plus, it would allow me to return to my human body whenever I went to see my family. Smart idea. Let's go to our training grounds, just in case you have a hard time with your Reiatsu, Yoruichi commented. Plus, I'll be in a position to get even, she thought with an inward chuckle. Smiling outwardly, she thought, Ichigo really seems to bring out my playful side. Once they had arrived in the underground facility, Ichigo turned to both Zangetsu and Yoruichi. Okay, so any ideas on where to start? I've never had much luck with controlling my Reiatsu, so. We are aware, Ichigo. The only way for you to seal your power is to willingly confine it. This way, you will be able to resume full strength if needed. I actually prepared your soul for this, as I suspected this possibility. First, remove your haori and shirt, Zangetsu commanded. Yoruichi's eyes narrowed when he did. Damn it, no matter how many times I see it, he just looks so damn hot. Wait, what's that? She thought as she saw a large circular scar at the top of Ichigo's sternum. She remembered seeing it his morning, but was too preoccupied to give it much thought. As this from where he had died before, like Shiro said. Once this seal is done, I am going to find out. After discarding the top half of his clothes much to Yoruichi's delight, Ichigo turned to Zangetsu. Okay, now what? Zangetsu answered, now you must look inwards. Feel each aspect of your power. Mine, yours, Shiro's. Now focus on your right arm. Imagine compressing each power into that arm. Ichigo nodded as he began to focus on the Reiatsu he could feel coursing through him. Good. Continue focusing on that arm. Push your Reiatsu to it, and you will see your seal. As Ichigo closed his eyes and continued to focus his Reiatsu into his arm, he began to feel a slight tingling sensation under the skin of that arm. As the feeling increased, he opened his eyes to see a black chain growing and encircling his arm. It was similar to the chain that encircled his arm when he was fighting Aizen. However, this chain appeared as a tattoo on his arm, the dark links actually in his skin. There were many small, black links that circled all the way from his hand to the very top of his shoulder. Damn, that's kind of a hot look for him, Yoruichi thought. As she watched, she could feel Ichigo's Reiatsu go from unnoticeable to overwhelming, and further on down to captain level. Soon, he had limited it to barely noticeable. To release this seal, simply raise your Reiatsu. Due to the incredible depth of your Reiatsu, I believe this method to be best suited to you. Each visible link represents a decrease, or limit, of your power. Links will begin to disappear one at a time as you increase your power, so you can more closely control your level for any situation. Good idea, I can use this to mask my Reiatsu. I also plan on training with my seal on. Can't let my power go to my head, right? Ichigo said with a smug grin. Damn right, Yoruichi said. Can't have you as all muscle and no skill. What would people say of my training? She finished with a cute pout, making Ichigo chuckle. Grinning, Ichigo decided to stroke her ego just a little. Don't worry, Yoruichi-sama, I'll be sure to make you proud. Once they see my skill, no one would ever dare to question your teaching prowess. Seeming appeased, Yoruichi raised one eyebrow and said, let's find out then, shall we? Up for a little hand-to-hand spar. Of course, don't take me lightly just because I sealed my Reiatsu. You might find that you trained me too well, Ichigo taunted. He knew it was only a taunt because Yoruichi usually kicked his ass, even with his high Reiatsu. Sure enough, that's what happened. As soon as the words left his mouth, he received a sharp kick to the gut, sending him flying across the sandy ground. For the next few hours, he and Yoruichi sparred, only stopping for her Zangetsu to instruct him on stances. When they were done, Ichigo put his hands on his knees, gasping for breath. Damn, trying to make a point, dear kitten, he asked in a fake sweet voice. As evidenced by the numerous cuts, gashes and bruises on his body, Yoruichi had been a little zealous in their training today compared to other days. Of course not, darling, just making sure my Taiko pupil still has his skills, she said in a voice that was just as sweet. I can't have my sweet berry solely dependent on his Reiatsu to save him, now can I? Smirking, she turned to Zangetsu, I think we may have gotten some progress with him, Zangetsu. Indeed. He seems to respond quite well to your training, Yoruichi. You seem to bring out the best in him. Shiro and I have noticed a marked improvement in the weather since your arrival. You suit him well, Zangetsu said with a kind look at Yoruichi, who looked moved and slightly stunned at his words. Turning to Ichigo, he said, if you won't be needing me for a while, I will go back now. Sure, thanks Zangetsu, I appreciate the help. As Zangetsu dissolved back into Ichigo, Ichigo turned to Yoruichi. Now that you've thoroughly kicked my ass and received a glowing commendation from my Zanpakuto, how about a dip in the springs? My, you've become quite bold, haven't you? She purred. Walking up to him, she pressed herself against him. Looks like you're not my shy little berry anymore, but I have to admit, the springs sound pretty good to me. Ichigo wrapped his arm around her, leaning to her ear to whisper, maybe I'm not, but whatever I am, whatever I will become, I'm yours. He couldn't help himself as he said this, lightly kissing her hand when he finished. Still humbled by the idea that the goddess that is Yoruichi could ever choose him, Ichigo was not wanting to miss any chances to express his love for her. Kissing her cheek, he continued, I can't tell you how much I love you, kitten. But there is something that I can tell you, last one to the springs has to give the other a massage. As he finished speaking, he quickly smacked her rear, earning a small yelp as he took off to the springs. Snapping out of the daze she had slipped into at Ichigo's loving words and actions, Yoruichi could only smile at his adorable antics. Okay, I love playful Ichigo. Still, it looks like I'll have to show him yet again why I'm the goddess of Flash. Plus, I'll show him how to really smack an ass, she grinned mischievously. Taking off, she quickly caught the Reiatsu-sealed Ichigo and grabbed him firmly on his rear as she blew past him. She laughed loudly at his own yelp as she easily beat him to the springs. When he arrived, she had already stripped down and entered the water. I was wondering when you'd show up, Ichigo. I am ready for my massage. Who knows, if you do well, things might go well for you, too, she said with a wink. Smiling at the implication, Ichigo quickly removed the rest of his clothes, earning a lusty purr from Yoruichi, and got in, quickly closing the distance between them. Drawing close, he pulled her to his lips, kissing her softly. As he moved behind her and began to massage her shoulders, she asked quietly, what is that scar from? The perfectly round one just below your collarbone. She noticed that Ichigo's hands froze. How bad is it, Ichigo? Clearing his throat, he sighed and quietly said, that was where Ulquiorra killed me the second time in Hueco Mundo. He fired a Cerro Escurz point blank at that spot. There is a matching one on my back. Gasping, Yoruichi turned to face him, her hand automatically reaching up to trace the circle. Shiro had told her about him dying, but hearing from Ichigo's own mouth made her heart clench. You died, twice. What happened? How did you come back? Ichigo grimaced as he relived the memory. Grimmjow made Inoue heal me the first time, but the second, my whole Shiro saved me. He took over my body, in what you would call my resurrection form, and killed Ulquiorra. Actually stabbed Ryu too when he tried to stop me from finishing him off. Shiro then used instant regeneration on me and brought me back. How was he able to bring you back if you were already dead? Yoruichi wasn't complaining about that, not at all. She just wanted to know how it could possibly have happened. I heard Inoue crying out for me. Ulquiorra was beating the hell out of Ryu, and she kept calling me, then. I heard her and Shiro and I responded, he said quietly as he looked down at the water. He wanted to chuckle, however, when he saw Yoruichi's eyes narrow dangerously as he told her this. Is my kitten jealous? Surely not. Yoruichi was not happy. First, she hears that the man she madly loves had a huge hole blown through him. Then, she hears that another woman, the one Ichigo had been trying to save and that she knew was head over heels for him, was able to call him back from the dead. I am going to have to watch that ginger-haired little. Grabbing her hands in his, he looked her in the eye. Hey, whatever you're thinking, stop. It was simply a case of my inner self responding to a friend in need. Ichigo chuckled. Hell, why do you think Shiro calls you Queen? It's because he knows the depth of my feelings for you and the importance you have in my life. Both he and Zangetsu know that my heart and soul belong to you. Shiro brought me back to life then. You're the only other one to accomplish that, he said with a quick kiss. Queen. That's so. Damn it, why does he have to be so perfect all the time? I can't even feel jealous when he says these things. Well, maybe I'm just wary because I can't be the only one to realize how amazing he is. I'll still keep an eye out, just in case. I might have to put girls like her or Matsumoto in their place if they try to mess with my Ichigo. Queen. Yoruichi said aloud this time, tossing her hair. A girl could get used to that. Though, you may want to remember that you have quite a possessive queen. I would hate to have to send scores of your admirers to Retsu for coming after what's mine, she said, roughly grabbing his face and kissing him deeply. Ichigo grinned. He loved how possessive she was. I think I can remember that, as long as you do the same. Kato's fate would seem like a picnic for anyone who dared to come after my kitten. I would move heaven and earth to protect you. Kissing her back, his expression became serious as he whispered, my heart and soul are yours to either protect or break. Ichigo knew he was switching between serious and silly, but he wanted Yoruichi to know that his jealousy and protectiveness was due to the fact that he knew that he had so much to lose. The same goes for me, love. I've been on the bad side of that and, wait. No, stop remembering that, damn it, she thought anxiously. Now was not the time to be worrying over her past. I'd never break your heart, Ichigo. I love you too much, she said, putting all of her focus on him as she looked into his eyes. Ichigo smiled. Wanting to lighten the mood, he said, besides, I'm the one with something to worry about, if anyone. How many suitors have I had to watch lay it on so thick that I want to throw up? Annoying peacocks, he muttered playfully. Annoying blonde fukutakis, Yoruichi muttered back, her ire peaking at the thoughts of that strawberry blonde woman who dared to flirt with her Ichigo. Speaking of peacocks, he started, a little hesitantly now, do you think I should go to the council of your clan to ask for permission to court you? I want everyone to know that we belong to each other. I couldn't be more proud, but I can't take a risk of ever losing you to some crazy plan of theirs to marry you off. As you are no doubt aware, particularly after last night, I'd love to shout it from the rooftops that you're mine. Yoruichi smiled. I remember your bellow last night, Barry. That's not a bad idea, but let's wait just a little while. Let's make sure we get your squad up and running first, so that the clan can see that you're the right man to be courting the next clan leader. This was going to be tough. While Yoruichi definitely wanted to go public with her relationship with Ichigo, noble politics made it a tricky situation. You have no idea of the expectations that will be put on you as soon as they know. I don't want to scare you off, now that I have you. Frowning, Ichigo reluctantly agreed, fine, but I don't know how many more times I can take these peacocks fawning over you. From what I hear, captains are expected to be at all of the countless noble parties and galas, and I'm not afraid to go bankai on some jackass. Anyways, what do you say we go see if Shiro has killed anybody yet? Sounds good to me, Taiko. Maybe, if you behave, we can take care of that problem with your door tonight, she added with a sly wink. Smiling now, Ichigo replied with a wink of his own, oh yeah. Maybe I better pick up some rope to make sure it's tied down nice and secure. Laughing, they both made their way back to the barracks. Upon arriving, Ichigo saw the training grounds were deserted. As he inspected them, the grounds themselves showed signs of battle, but nobody was to be found. He suddenly felt an increase in Reiatsu behind him, followed by several voices shouting, Bala! And the ground around him exploding. Confused, after diving onto the ground, he started when he heard behind him, Yo, King. Turning around, he was shocked to see Yoruichi standing beside Shiro and all the vizards who were masked and laughing hysterically at him. Rukia stood next to them, laughing as well. Lifting his mask, Shinji called out to Ichigo, sorry Cap'n, but he said he'd only help us get better with Ballas if we scared the shit out of you. Ichigo was about to reply when Yoruichi flashed over to him, smiling mischievously at him. Maybe you should show them what you worked on today, Taiko. He smirked at her suggestion. Let's give it a try then. Ichigo then turned, angling himself so that they could see his arm clearly, exposing the chain-like tattoo. Damn, Cap'n, got yourself some ink while we were training, Kensai said with a low whistle. Something like that, Ichigo said. As he finished, he began to concentrate on releasing his seal. He could hear gasps as the group saw links of the chain start to disappear and felt his Reiatsu begin a slow climb to dizzying heights. As soon as he had all of them, even Yoruichi, on their knees breathing heavily, he relented and started to add back links. "Your Reiatsu is unbelievable, Ichigo," Rukia cried. Ichigo chuckled at her expression. "And that wasn't as high as I could go." This was met with stunned silence. "What?" Kensai deadpanned. "The links on my arm represent parts of my seal. I still had several to go. It shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I mean, if you can feel my Reiatsu, then I've lowered it." "Well, that's the last time I piss you off," Shinji chuckled. "So that's what you had to work on today. Why did you want a seal?" "I figured it would help the rest of Soul Society relax around me and allow me the chance to get back into my body whenever I needed to. This stays with us, though. To anyone else, this is a tattoo, okay? I don't need anybody on my ass for my Reiatsu level. As far as how it looks, I have to give Zangetsu credit for that. Now, how did today go?" "Not bad, King. They're pretty good with their hollow powers, they just have to get to know them a little better. It's going to be fun whipping their asses into shape." Ichigo frowned at the phrasing. "Was anyone able to draw blood from you?" "Yeah, thanks to your open invitation, jackass. Though I have to admit, the midget was the first to get me. She may not have hollow powers, but she's scary." Rukia looked like she was about to hit him again, but stopped and smiled smugly when he finished. Ichigo chuckled. "Good job everybody. Tomorrow we start the recruitment process, so take the rest of the day and rest up. We'll meet back here first thing in the morning, got it?" "Hi," was the response as the group dispersed. Turning to Ichigo, Yoruichi walked up to him slowly and purred, "Now let's go check on that door." The next few months seemed like a blur to Ichigo. What he quickly learned was that being a captain was quite a challenge. Between recruiting new squad members, overseeing the reconditioning of the barracks and seemingly endless stacks of paperwork regarding both, he was kept quite busy. Luckily, having a squad comprised of members used to the tasks of recruitment and paperwork, all was done rather smoothly. The Vizards and Rukia proved to be invaluable. Shinji, Rose, Love, and Kensai helped Ichigo learn the ropes of what's expected of a captain, while Rukia's relentless work ethic and knowledge of the Rukongai made a monumental difference in their recruiting. Half of the seated officers in the squad came from the outer districts, all with shockingly strong Reiatsu and survival skills that would most certainly suit them well in their life as a Shinigami. Quite a few more were recruited for unseated positions, while several more officers and many unseated members came from the academy. Though all of his squad members seemed to be interesting characters when he met them, his new third and fourth seated members were the ones he remembered the most vividly. Flashback. As Ichigo made his way through the halls of the academy, he couldn't help but be impressed by the skills he was seeing from some of the students. Since he was here to recruit, he had been cataloging faces, while trying desperately to remember names. After several hours, Ichigo decided to call it a day as he hadn't really found what he was looking for. Walking down the front steps of the main academy building, he heard the faint clangs of metal off to his right. Following the sounds, he came upon a pair of students sparring on a training ground on the side of the very building he had just left. How did I miss this? I didn't see these two earlier. Deciding to watch for a moment, Ichigo completely masked his Reiatsu and stood to the side, out of view. The two combatants, a girl with dark maroon hair and a boy with messy, copper-brown hair, were trading strong blows. Hearing the playful banter, however, Ichigo knew that neither would truly hurt the other. The boy was a decent swordsman. He seemed to mix instinct and skill to create an interesting barrage of attacks. A jab here, immediately followed by a low slice, after which a well-placed kick showed Ichigo that the boy was a natural talent. Judging from his Reiatsu, Ichigo knew he could easily be a seated member. How has he not been recruited already? Ichigo wanted to laugh as he heard the boy taunt the girl in a way that reminded him of his jabs at Rukia. Come on, Kiyomi, I've seen first years who can swing a sword better than that. If you're going to be my lieutenant one day, you'll need to pick up the slack, the boy called out with a playful grin. The red-haired girl simply smiled. Now, Mitsuha, I would hate to have to embarrass you in front of the captains when the trials take place next week. You have such cute swordplay, it would be a shame to make you look even more ridiculous just to quiet you. Quiet me, ha, that's funny. Let's step it up a notch, Sudareki, Aoi Haruku, strike, Blue Hulk. The normal-looking Zanpakuto he was carrying quickly shifted into a shiny, metallic blue warhammer which he quickly brought down where the girl who just barely shunned PO'd away was standing. Ichigo couldn't help the quiet snicker that escaped him. Luckily the two students didn't hear him. Kami, this girl is what Yuzu would be like as a Shinigami. The sweet temperament was something in which he could easily see the resemblance of his sister. If the young Shinigami has a hidden stern side, then it would be a perfect match. As if to answer his thoughts, the girl's gray eyes flashed as she reappeared across the field and said, very well. Otoshireru to Yoruichi, Kurono Mibojin. Ensnare and entrance, Black Widow. Her katana quickly shrank to a small, jet black, nastily curved dagger. Ichigo frowned as he thought, I'd hate to see what happens to this guy if she gets too close with that thing. Still, she'd have to get past that big-ass hammer of his to use it. Again, as if in response to his thoughts, the girl quickly called out, Bakudo number 9, Horin. When she finished, a long string of reddish-orange energy left from her hand all the way around the one she called Mitsuo. The moment it had fully encircled him, she tugged harshly, tightening the bind. Wasting no time, she then quickly stabbed her dagger into the stream, Iraguchi. Nothing seemed to happen, though, as Mitsuo quickly broke the bindings by sharply spiking his Reiatsu. Ichigo was impressed by the rough, but effective power the boy had. With some polishing, he could really be something. The effects of her attack quickly became evident, though, as he tried his next assault. Raising his hammer, he slammed it down several feet from where she stood. Wah! What the hell? He exclaimed. You didn't even move. I didn't need to. Kurono Mibojin has a dual ability. She can both enhance my binding capabilities, as well as entrance my opponents with her poison. Poison? What the hell are you doing? Are you trying to kill me? Mitsuo bellowed. Kiyomi shook her head, not at all. Her poison is directly tied to my intentions. If I have no intentions of hurting someone, it simply becomes a hallucinogen, disrupting the thought process of my opponent, you in this case. However, if I were trying to kill you, it would be much different. As she explained, the young girl did not seem to care much for the second aspect. Roughly shaking his head as if trying to clear it, Mitsuo said, I see. In that case, Chikyu no Yari. As he finished speaking, he slammed his hammer onto the ground, causing a large spike of earth to erupt from the ground underneath Kiyomi, who was thrust backwards several feet from the attack. Before either could attack again, they froze at the sound of clapping. Both whipped around to see Ichigo emerge from his hiding place. Kei Kurosaki Taiko, we didn't see you, Kiyomi stammered as she quickly bowed. No need for that, now, Ichigo said in a friendly tone. That was pretty impressive. Thank you, Kurosaki Taiko, both exclaimed at the same time. Ichigo wanted to roll his eyes, though, at how tense they were. Both were standing ramrod straight and barely breathing. You can relax, you know. I don't bite. Both seemed to relax at this, with Mitsuo gaining a grin that eerily reminded him of Keigo. I'm sure you're disappointed about that, nay, Kiyomi. Ichigo fought against a blush at the insinuation which he was getting much better at thanks to his teacher that was becoming all too common. Ever since he arrived back in Soul Society, he had become increasingly aware of rumors that he was gaining a female Shinigami fan club. As he expected, Kiyomi's face went as red as her hair. Shut up, Mitsuo. You are such a pervert. Please don't listen to him, Kurosaki Taiko. Deciding to help her out, Ichigo kindly smiled. I'm sure it's just the aftereffects of the poison. He turned to heavily glare at Mitsuo, right? Deciding that his joke was absolutely, completely, definitely not hilarious, Mitsuo gulped and stuttered, all right. That's what it was. My apologies, Kurosaki Taiko. So I hear that the squad trials are next week. Have you thought of which division you are looking to join? Ichigo asked, looking between the two, who quickly exchanged excited glances. Actually, Kurosaki Taiko, we have both filled out applications for Squad 5, Kiyomi said quietly. Ichigo was surprised. Really? Well, that is interesting, and very good to know. However, Those who want to join my squad better be ready to work their asses off. I don't accept half-hearted efforts on anything. Hi, Taiko. We're the hardest working in our year, Mitsuha exclaimed, now excited at where the conversation looked to be heading, even though Captain Kurosaki seemed to be leaving. As Ichigo turned and started walking away, he called over his shoulder. Good. I have incredibly high expectations for my third and fourth seats. After hearing their gasps, he finished with, report to the Squad 5 barracks the moment your graduation ceremony is over. He couldn't help his grin as he heard two loud yells after he had rounded the corner. Flashback end. Through instances like this, Ichigo had quickly developed a very positive rapport with his squad. Frequent appearances in training sessions as well as his encouraging, yet mostly laid back, compared to many captains' demeanor quickly won over his troops. He also garnered their favor by his equal treatment of everyone. Whether you were from the poorest districts or the most elite families, all were considered to be in the same standing. One aspect of his leadership seemed to endear him to his troops even more, which completely baffled him as to why it worked, was something he had mysteriously and unfortunately picked up from his father. Due to the competitive nature of many of his recruits, mainly the seated officers, as well as his own reputation as a fighter, Ichigo would often receive requests for sparring duels against various squad members hoping to prove their mettle against the great hero. He obviously wasn't going to fight his squad all out, and even if he were, he couldn't spend all of his time sparring them. Yet, Ichigo recognized the hunger in his troops, and decided to meet them halfway. To compromise and benefit the squad, he made a blanket offer to his squad. Ichigo would randomly attack members outside of Rukia and the Vizards anywhere and with zero notice. If they held him off for 5 strikes, or could land 3 against him, he would allow them to duel him. While dubiously accepted at first, after a few days of their captain bellowing out random squad members' names and spontaneously attacking them in hand-to-hand combat, the squad had responded with tremendous enthusiasm. Though he would never seriously injure his own squad, bumps and bruises became something of a bragging right amongst the squad. There were even bets and pools as to which member would get to 5 first, though the current leader sat at only 2 avoided and none achieved against him. Yoruichi, Rukia, and the Vizards found this not only hilarious, but surprisingly effective and flattering in Yoruichi's case, as Ichigo would publicly give her credit for his fighting prowess. Squad morale was consistently high, as was general awareness and enthusiasm in training. Shinji and Hiyori constantly laughed at how many of the squad members' training goal was to kick their captain's ass, just for the bragging rights. Training was going well on all fronts. The Vizards were taking to Shiro's training very well. They had all fully mastered Seros and Ballas, and most had begun to get comfortable using Sonito along with Shunpo. Pesquisa was something that many were having to train longer for, simply due to the attention and Reiatsu control required. One aspect that was slightly disappointing for Ichigo was in dealing with the Vizareds hollows. While Shiro was a sentient part of his own soul, the hollow spirits attached to the Vizards seemed to be mindless beings ruled by their carriers' stronger emotions. Their attachment seemed to be more of a forced amalgamation, rather than a true part of their souls. Though unable to ever achieve resurrection, the Vizards found that with Shiro's brutal tutelage their masks were no longer bound by a time limit. They also were surprised as several of their masks began to alter slightly. While the shapes remained the same, red and black stripes and markings began to appear as their powers progressed, giving tangible evidence to the effectiveness of their training. In turn, their own training of the squad was flowing smoothly. Hachi led Kido training with Rukia, while the rest of the Vizards taught combat techniques both with Zanpakuto and hand-to-hand. Sometimes Hiyori would get a little too excited, but the squad responded well to their training after some initial hesitation, due to the nature of their tutor's hollow powers. Ichigo had also been training heavily with Zangetsu and Shiro. He was getting much more adept at fighting with his seal engaged, as well as learning new techniques from his inner powers. His favorite one had been when Shiro had taught him how to do ranged fighting with Zangetsu using the cloth attached to the hilt. It took a few days, and a few trips to 4th Division, for Ichigo to get the hang of keeping his coordination while spinning the blade so incredibly fast. Shiro prevented him from using instant regeneration so his ass would learn quicker. Soon, though, he had been able to consistently launch the blade with the same precision that Shiro had used the first time they had fought in Ichigo's inner world. While the majority of his training was going well, the largest struggle Ichigo encountered dealt with his releases. The initial problem Ichigo had was wondering why they were even needed. Surely with his powers at such a high level, anything aside from removing links from his seal would be superfluous. He had received 2 rather large knots on his head at this question, as both Shiro and Zangetsu whacked him rather sternly. "You have to be able to control your Reiatsu without counting links, you idiot," Shiro had yelled. "Our releases will keep you from destroying the world around you and give you something to manage the power and strategize with." "I agree, Ichigo. You will not be like Kenpachi, simply waving your sword about and trying to brutalize your way through battles. Your releases will help you against a broad variety of enemies. While our power is great, you are not a god. Our releases will allow you easy access to our entire range of attacks and abilities, this making you a better fighter and a better captain." Even with his proclamation, Shiro had still flat out refused to give any information about his resurrection, other than the fact that Ichigo had to claim it. Along with that, one of the first things that Ichigo had learned was that no matter how far he sealed his Reiatsu, Zangetsu refused to let him reshape his Shikai blade. The stoic spirit had no qualms about Ichigo shielding his Reiatsu, even to the point of completely masking it. However, Zangetsu would only allow changing of the blade when released to Bankai. This had confused and annoyed Ichigo to no end. Flashback. What is the problem with sealing the blade? It already gets that small when in Bankai, so I don't see what the issue is. I thought it was only big like that because I couldn't contain my Reiatsu, Ichigo said, frustrated at his Zanpakuto's lack of cooperation over something that seemed so trivial. He didn't really care that much about changing the blade, but the fact that his Reiatsu would be less than it normally was while in Shikai, as well as Zangetsu's staunch position on the issue made him want to press the issue, if for nothing else but a satisfactory answer. He saw the control of his Reiatsu and the size of his blade as inexorably linked. However, Zangetsu firmly responded to his query. "There is no need to fix that which is not broken, Ichigo. I am quite content with the appearance of my releases, and now with our powers as deep and controlled as they are, I have no need to change my blades when you can simply release your seal with the releases. I honestly see no reason for you to be unhappy with them," Tensa Zangetsu replied nonchalantly as they were training in Bankai. Of course, Shiro was no help to the situation. "Come on, King. It's obvious that the old man is compensating here. He doesn't mind it being smaller in Bankai because he can put more speed into it and make up for the smaller size. When it's in Shikai, he needs it bigger so his old ass can still impress the ladies. He's worried people would think he couldn't perform if he was in some little old shriveled form and it had no power," Shiro commented, making himself laugh hysterically. Moments like these were when Ichigo knew that Zangetsu was most definitely part of his soul. When Shiro stopped speaking, he was forced to duck as an outraged Tensa Zangetsu swung the slim, black blade at his head. The younger-looking Zanpakuto spirit was much feistier than his elderly Shikai counterpart, and had much less tolerance for Shiro's antics. "Compensating? How dare you, you crude bastard. Just because I do not wish to look like some common tool does not mean that I am compensating for anything. And my blade is not shriveled. Awful touchy, wouldn't you say, King?" Shiro cackled as he was forced to take on his resurrection form to counter the attacks. Tensa Zangetsu got in several kicks and punches, yet after several minutes of furious battle, both spirits finally calmed down and returned their attention to Ichigo. Feeling better, Ichigo asked the now elder Zangetsu, who had shifted back to Shikai. "Quite," he began, "though the fact remains that I will not allow my blade to change shape." Rolling his eyes in defeat, Ichigo sighed heavily before turning to Shiro, who was still in his resurrection form. "Do you really have to antagonize every being you come across?" He gazed over the imposing form as he spoke, noticing more stripes and markings than he recalled from his flashes in his memories of that night against Ulquiorra. "Wow, even my hollow powers have been. My eyes are up here, you fruity perv king," Shiro called out as he noticed Ichigo observing, and it seemed begrudgingly admiring, the form. "If you wanna look this good, your ass is going to have to claim my release. And before you ask, no, I'm not giving you anything else. Figure it out on your own. But if you don't work at it, I'm going to make sure to have a lot of fun making your head a madhouse," he finished as now Ichigo took a swipe at the annoying hollow spirit. End flashback. All things considered, Ichigo was handling the life of a captain as well as one could expect of him. He was able to adapt to many different aspects quite easily, and without much complaint. However, one small thing tended to bother him more than he realized it could: parties. Dear Kami, did nobles like to throw parties, galas, and other events to show off their wealth? Normally, Ichigo would pay no mind to this, however he found out quite soon that for a captain much less one of his stature to ignore the invitations he constantly received was considered the height of rudeness and in some cases, a political power play. It had taken quite a bit of Yoruichi and Rukia's patience to explain the subtleties and nuances that were involved in dealing with nobility. While Ichigo may consider not showing up for one party, for whatever reason, yet attending another to be acceptable, the two noble ladies pointed out how it could easily be taken as favoritism or him backing one clan over another. And so Ichigo found himself begrudgingly going to event after event. Yet, throughout the busy schedules and required appearances, dealing with noble snobs, the interactions with his squad and his own training, Ichigo always made time to spend with Yoruichi. Though she often found excuses to visit him through his daily routine, he made sure to always make time outside of work for her. Many times they would go spar below Sokyoku Hill and end up in the hot springs, or spend their evenings strolling the more rural areas of the Rukongai, and every night they would share either her bed at the mansion, or his at the barracks. During this time, they grew even closer together. Both had begun picking up on the more subtle idiosyncrasies and traits the other exhibited, as well as both showing a fair bit more openness with each other. One of the more surprising, and enjoyable, things for Ichigo was learning that Yoruichi would simply melt at his touch, especially if he lightly scratched her back like he would if she were in her cat form. He would often do this as they fell asleep or were relaxing in the springs. While nothing major, her obvious and inevitable response to his touch proved to be quite flattering and welcome. Another surprising, yet mostly welcomed, aspect of Yoruichi was her protectiveness of her, Ichigo. More than once, at different events and even within his own squad grounds, he would catch her eyes narrowed and her reiatsu raised at any female who looked at him longer than a few seconds, yet he couldn't help but feel proud. Being her Ichigo, even if it was just between them at this point, stroked his ego and quite often caused a grin to break through his perpetual scowl. One thing that he couldn't decide on as being good or bad was Yoruichi's surprising love of dancing. He had never been one to really consider it. However, seeing the way her face lit up whenever he agreed, he knew he would gladly bear it. While she taught him dancing in their time alone, the parties that he was less than fond of became that much brighter as he had an excuse to touch her in public. He also learned little extra tidbits about her as time passed, picking up ideas for her likes and dislikes. For example, he learned that she was actually quite a fan of red wine, as opposed to sake. Ichigo also discovered that Yoruichi also had a bit of a sweet tooth, and would always perk up whenever he brought her chocolate from the world of the living. Yoruichi, on the other hand, was both surprised and a bit flattered by Ichigo's nature when around her. During her time as leader of the Onmitsukido, she had developed an incredibly attuned perception of the world and people around her, and whenever she and Ichigo were with each other, she noticed how he would completely orient himself around her. While it was never oppressive or uncomfortable, she would notice small things like if she were to move to another side of a room, he would subconsciously turn toward her. If they were walking alone, he almost always would hold her hand or stand close to her side. She also noticed that he was much calmer if in her direct presence or touching her in some fashion. This was something Yoruichi quickly grew to love. It always made her feel a little smug to know that she was the only one to see this side of Ichigo. She knew that even if they had been public with their relationship, she would still be the only one to see most of his actions and light moods. Another one of her favorite aspects was simply talking to Ichigo. His facial expressions that showed his engagement and attention to her words always made her feel like she was the only thing important in the world to him, and he seemed to never be less than happy to give her his undivided attention. Yoruichi also learned a few new simpler tidbits about Ichigo during the time they spent together. One of her favorite things to learn was that Ichigo was highly susceptible to her pouting. If there was ever a disagreement or argument, she never had to yell or get angry, rather she would frown with her bottom lip slightly out and Ichigo's resolve would almost always crumble. While she didn't abuse this, it certainly helped on occasion. While, again, nothing major, these small nuances and tendencies seemed to help to strengthen their already deep bond, and each discovery helped to illuminate a bigger picture of each to the other. However, like any couple, Yoruichi and Ichigo also discovered some less than desirable, or more intense, as they thought of it, traits in the other, particularly their tempers. Yoruichi soon discovered that Ichigo's stubbornness and density were not aspects simply reserved for battle and women, and that his temper was hardwired to each. On several occasions, her patience would be sorely tested, as Ichigo would vehemently protest, and sometimes outright refuse, to comply with things such as social norms, expectations and traditions. She couldn't say that she was surprised by this, however she knew he would have to start accepting it sooner or later, given his position. Having lived almost his entire life as purely a human and warrior of some sort, Yoruichi became frustratingly aware that Ichigo was quite ignorant of the fact that many of the battles in life are actually not fought with fists, swords and reiatsu attacks, rather with words. With him not being the most eloquent of speakers, as well as having a short-fused temper, Yoruichi knew that Ichigo was at a disadvantage in the world of politics and nobility. Though she was already well aware of it, this became glaringly obvious during one of the first galas that Ichigo had attended after becoming captain. Flashback. I gotta say, Captain, it's been a while since I've been to an event so nice. Nobles sure know how to throw their money around. Shinji chuckled as he walked next to Ichigo. Ichigo grunted his agreement, guessing that their environment probably didn't even represent a fraction of the family's wealth. The blonde-visored normally didn't attend these events. However, as Rukia was recovering in 4th Division from injuries sustained in her more advanced Bankai training, he had attended as acting lieutenant, since it was customary for them to be present with their captain. And to think that this isn't even one of the larger families. Can't say I'd really know what to do with that level of money. The idea alone is insane. Thanks for coming though. Shirayuki wore Rukia out pretty badly yesterday and she won't be up and about for another day or so, Ichigo said, glad to have a friend nearby. Of course. I mean, I'm flattered you asked me on a date, even if I don't swing that way, Shinji said, causing Ichigo to flounder for a second before opening his mouth to shout his retort. His reply was cut off as a slim, dark-skinned hand covered his mouth. Now, Ichigo, must you let everyone rile you up so much? It wouldn't serve well to have you blowing up by shouting and ranting in a place like this, Yoruichi said as she seemingly materialized next to Ichigo. If you really want to get riled up, we can have the fireworks later tonight, she finished with a low purr. Yoruichi and Shinji chuckled at the series of emotions that could be easily read in the young captain's eyes. His surprise at a hand over his mouth was soon followed by realization that he was about to make a scene at a rather nice event, and ended by Ichigo's blush creeping up over the hand still on his mouth. The trio's faces collectively dropped, however, as an arrogant familiar to two voice chimed in. Well, what do we have here? It would seem that you still have quite a bit of training left for young Kurosaki Taiko. We certainly wouldn't want to continue his streak of terribly poor choices, so it is good that his sensei is around. No, Kato said as he sauntered up to the group. What do you want, Kato? Ichigo growled as he gave his darkest glare. Hearing Shinji pointedly clearing his throat, and feeling a firm hit on his arm, he looked down to see Yoruichi giving him a look that clearly said, calm your ass down, now. As Ichigo became silent, Yoruichi turned and said in her fake pleasant voice, how may we help you, Kato? Donning a surprised look that was clearly fake as well, the yellow-eyed man lightly said, help. Oh no thank you. I was simply wanting to see evidence with my own eyes. I find the situation both amusing and disturbing simultaneously. And what situation is that, exactly? Ichigo butted in, quickly giving up on silence. He still hadn't forgiven Kato's words against Yoruichi, nor would he. The man was walking on thin ice, and Ichigo was about to push back if he didn't leave. Turning to the young captain, Kato drawled evenly, why, the hollow contamination within the Gote 13, of course. I see that, not only have they allowed someone proven to be thoroughly tainted to be a captain, but that he has been allowed his own squadron full of nothing more than a madman's failed experiments that have ashamedly been allowed to continue existing. Your poor decisions not only embarrass you now, but they embarrass the prestigious Gote 13 and the Seraiti in turn. Quite disappointing, I'll admit. Kato finished with a grin. Come on, you overpowered mutant child. Make a move. You touch me here and Central 46 is going to tear you apart. You and your hollow freaks are living on borrowed time. They won't be so lucky as to simply get away with banishment, this time. All I need is to get you to show how unstable and dangerous you all are. As Yoruichi was about to reply, Kato's intended effect became clearly present in the now infuriated face of Ichigo, who was stepping threateningly towards the yellow-eyed man. Raising her Reiatsu, she flashed in front of him, claiming his attention. Take a walk, now. You can't let him get to you so easily, Ichigo. Shinji, why don't you and Ichigo grab a drink? I can meet up with you soon. Shinji, who had rolled his eyes at Kato's less than original insult, clapped his hand firmly on Ichigo's shoulder. Come on, Cap'n. There are too many good drinks and fine-looking ladies around here to be stuck here talking to this old fart. Let's go see who's interested in the great war hero. Ichigo didn't want to leave, but knew it was for the best. His temper was not going to help him here, he realized, as he took in Yoruichi's tension and Shinji's dismissal of the insult. As Shinji and Ichigo walked away, Shinji used his grip on his captain's shoulder to steer him out into a corridor. Turning to face him, he quickly smacked the back of Ichigo's head. "OW, damn it, what the hell was that for?" Ichigo protested. Shinji frowned. "For letting that bastard get to you again. Ichigo, you can't just rip apart every person who insults you. You're an incredibly powerful captain now with an extremely controversial squad. You have got to start realizing that you have a bullseye on your back. That prick in there was clearly trying to get you to react, because Central 46 would step in if you did. I don't give a shit over what he said about me, but he's not going to talk about you guys like that. Period. And they didn't seem to have a problem with it when I straightened him out last time," Ichigo growled. Sighing, Shinji placed his hand on Ichigo's shoulder again, this time in a calming manner. "I get it, Cap'n, I really do. Me and the gang really do appreciate what you gave us, and we consider you one of us. That's why I'm telling you this. We hear this shit all the time, and to be honest, it's almost funny. And as far as last time, Central 46 never found out. Yoruichi told me that the Shihoin clan covered it up because you stood up for their next clan leader. You've got to pick your battles better. So I should just let him say whatever the hell he wants?" Ichigo asked, incredulous. He had always been able to brush off insults to himself, but that bastard wasn't even considering some of his closest friends to be people. Just failed experiments. Don't give him what he wants. People will try to get reactions out of you, so get used to it. Every time you do, they win. It's as simple as that. Your reactions give them control over you, and allows them to manipulate your life. You should know us and Yoruichi well enough by now to know that we won't let that happen," Shinji said, willing his message to get through Ichigo's head. Sighing heavily, Ichigo finally relented. All right, I get it. It just grates on my nerves so badly when I hear someone say shit like that. I'm not saying I'll get it right every time, but I'll try to rein it in. That's enough for me. We've got your back, but sometimes you have to help us out, okay? Yeah, okay, good. Now, let's see if we can use your hero status to work some magic for me with the ladies, Shinji said with a wag of his eyebrows. Watching them walk away, Yoruichi's eyes narrowed as she knew that Shinji would probably talk him down, then actually would introduce him to some girls, if for nothing else but to get Ichigo flustered and embarrassed. Sure, it was a great plan to get him out of his anger, but she didn't like the idea of any girl flirting with her man. Better wrap this up quick. I see why you like him, Lady Shihoin. He is quite amusing, though that nasty temper of his will get him into trouble one of these days. You should teach him better before he really loses himself, Kato said in a glib tone. Whipping her head around, Yoruichi narrowed her eyes. I would worry more about yourself, Kato. Your pathetic attempts to disrupt both Ichigo and his squad members are shameful. I do not expect higher of you, though I would tread carefully. Turning around, she commented over her shoulder as she walked away, then again, it is your tongue that you're risking. As she walked away, she missed the growing, disturbing smile that spread across Kato's lips. End flashback. While they had to rein him in a few more times over the course of those few months, Ichigo at least showed that he was willing to work on his quick temper and rash reactions. However, as Yoruichi discovered the depths of Ichigo's stubbornness and inability to avoid getting antagonized, Ichigo had made a discovery of his own. While Yoruichi was very playful, flirty, and easygoing the majority of the time, Ichigo quickly learned that she had a nasty, nasty temper that was easily triggered, seemingly only by him. He learned firsthand how painful her ire and protectiveness could be after Matsumoto had surprised him with another of her greetings, after a captain's meeting, where Yoruichi had happened to stop by. Flashback. Ichigo had successfully escaped from the flirty Fukuteku's chest, flushed and gasping for air, in time to see Yoruichi staring at him with the most nondescript expression he had ever seen. The sheer lack of expression, while not registering with those who were unaware of their relationship, sent a fierce shiver down his spine. As soon as they had left the meeting room, Yoruichi seemed eager to spar. That night had been brutal. There was no other word for it. Though he vigorously tried to explain that he had been caught by surprise and that he had pushed himself away as soon as he registered what was happening, Yoruichi simply growled as her fists and feet made incredibly accurate, incredibly painful contact more times than he could count. What the hell? I know she walked in at a bad moment, but seriously, she should know by now that she's the only woman I want. At the same time that he learned how intense her anger could be, Ichigo learned that Yoruichi's temper was quite confusing. After she had finished pummeling him quite thoroughly, she then half-dragged Ichigo to the hot springs, quickly divesting both of them of their clothes and roughly pushing him in. When his head had emerged from the water, he spat out a mouthful of water and was prepared to shout his confusion until he felt her hands grab his face and pull him into a rough, passionate, mind-blanking kiss. Wow, I mean, what? Still holding his face, Yoruichi's golden eyes burned into his. You are mine, she growled in a way that sent a completely different type of shiver throughout Ichigo. The look she was giving him was both chilling and arousing at the same time. And this, she growled again, pushing his head into her breasts like Matsumoto had, is the only chest I better ever see your face in, got it? Ichigo could only nod dumbly as he tried to figure out exactly what was going on. It's obvious that Kitty's feeling more protective than jealous. Wake up, Kingy, she saw another woman touching her man. What would you do in this situation? You're right, he thought as realization struck Ichigo like a bolt of lightning. While he had been solely focused on proving his innocence, he could see that he had missed the entire point of Yoruichi's anger. This wasn't paranoia over Ichigo's fidelity, or distrust of his heart. Rather, this was an intense possessiveness and jealousy over someone touching her Ichigo. Ichigo instantly realized that he would feel the same fury if someone had dared to touch his Yoruichi. Meeting her gaze, Ichigo huskily whispered, I am yours. Not waiting for her response, he gripped her tightly, crashing his lips to hers. After a moment of feverish kissing, his hands reached down, roughly grabbed her rear and lifted her up, forcing her legs to wrap around his waist. And you, he said, his voice rough with desire, you are mine. She hated being needy or bitchy, but sometimes she wanted Ichigo to answer her more primal needs that arose from seeing another woman attempting to touch her man. Looking at him, Yoruichi was breathless, but still able to bring out her trademark smirk. Prove it, Barry. End flashback. Their tempers seemed to both frustrate and entrance each other, and while they each seemed to hold the key to pushing the other's temper higher than either thought possible, neither could stay mad for long. Present. While Ichigo always loved the time they spent together, and all the things he learned about the wonder that was Yoruichi, the constant need for secrecy as he was no longer her official student eventually began to wear on his nerves. Yoruichi had always tried to placate him when she would sense his frustration, assuring him that she was frustrated too, but that it was just the way to play the political game. Yet, it seemed that the comfort she would provide would last less and less each time. Surprisingly, it was Urahara who had provided Ichigo with the most helpful insight, as he had been occasionally coming to help Ichigo train to get used to his seal. I see you and dear Yoruichi have become quite close. I hear you two are so secretive that you've been sneaking around all over the Seraiti, Kazuki prodded Ichigo jokingly. She says we have too. I don't see what the big problem is. None of the captains who know about us have a problem with it, why should her clan? I mean, I am a captain now, so that's some kind of status, right? Ichigo asked in frustration. It was just he and Urahara training, as Yoruichi had clan duties to attend to, added to the fact that they had had quite a falling out a week ago. Though it had been a rough one, he hoped things would settle after she'd had time to cool down. It's not as simple as saying, "We're in love, Kurosaki-san," Kazuki began, interrupting his thoughts. Yoruichi had told him that Ichigo had been having trouble with the secrets in hiding, and while the older Shinigami could understand the boy's frustration, he knew why Yoruichi was insisting on keeping their relationship under the radar. You have to understand, in the world of nobility, courting a lady, especially the next clan leader, is seen as one of the biggest power plays you can do. Yoruichi is probably trying to save you quite a large headache, because I doubt that you know this, but when you court nobility, it is always with the intention of marriage. That means the spotlight is on you, and you are more heavily scrutinized than you could possibly imagine. Even if nobility status wasn't an issue, and the clan accepted you as Yoruichi's suitor, they would be expecting a marriage in the near future. She's protecting you from all of the pressures and expectations you don't know would come just from claiming that you two are romantically interested in each other, he finished quietly. That, and she's probably scared to death that you would be scared to death at the idea of marriage, even if you knew your heritage. Poor girl. Of course courting is done with the intent of marriage. Why else would you go through the trouble of dealing with the clan? Ichigo blurted out. He could understand Yoruichi's hesitation, but he had meant what he said to her. He was hers in this life and in all others. Did she think that he was lying? He knew he was in love with her, and her alone, and he refused to lose her to some stupid clan scheme. Ichigo had already made the actual hard decision, confessing his love, and he definitely saw love as a lifetime thing. How could it not be? If manning up and marrying her was what it took to secure his place by her side, then he would gladly dive in with both feet. It's not like he hadn't thought of it before. The days of being afraid of my heart are long past. I won't look back, but move forward. Kazuki's jaw dropped and he paused mid-swing. Are you saying you want to marry Yoruichi? Wow, maybe she really did underestimate our dear, headstrong Kurosaki-san. I get that you love her, but you're wanting to spend the rest of what will be a very long life with her. Maybe I underestimated him as well. He's never really been one to wax and wane over decisions before. Ichigo blushed and scratched the back of his head, but quietly answered, of course I want to marry her. I've already told her that I want to be with her for this life and any others. I know I'm not a noble and all, but I definitely want to be the one that gets to spend his life with Yoruichi. I don't care what I'd have to put up with from the clan, it would be worth it for her. I can only hope she feels the same, but yes, I want to marry Yoruichi. I see, Kazuki muttered, a plan formulating in his head. He never has done things half-assed. Looks like I need to give Ishin a call. Well, I can only tell you to trust Yoruichi. She certainly has your best interests at heart. I would also hold off on mentioning anything about marriage, for the time being. No need for unnecessary pressure, I know, Ichigo replied, still quiet. I'd never pressure her into anything, but I can't help but get a little frustrated. All the secrecy and hiding, it just gets to me every once in a while. I was actually talking about you being under pressure. Anyways, chin up, Kurosaki-san, Urahara said in a light tone. These things have a way of working themselves out. I would recommend, if you are truly serious about your desire to be with Yoruichi, that you speak to your father. Having been married himself, he could possibly help you gain a larger perspective of what you could expect. After pausing to let his words sink in, Urahara continued, by the way, I brought that package you wanted. Hopefully it will help restore peace in paradise. Now enough gossiping like old ladies, let's see what Shiro and Zangetsu have been teaching you. As they brought their blades together again, Ichigo could only think, maybe it is time I talked to the old man about the future. He's crazy as hell, but he's been there when I needed him. After they finished sparring, Urahara had left to return to his shop. Not long after, Ichigo recognized a pair of Reiatsu signatures that he had been expecting. Ichigo, are you here? He heard Rukia call loudly from the entrance of the cave. Yeah, I'm over here, midget. Did you guys bring what I asked for? This time, Lisa, who had also been expected, answered as they came into view. Yes, Barry Tycho. We brought your I need to get out of the doghouse, supplies. While I don't know what you did to piss her off, I have to admit that this is a good start to make her stop being mad at you. I don't feel like getting into it, but if it makes her feel better, then it's worth it. Thanks, really. I appreciate you helping me with this and not blabbing to everyone else, Ichigo said quietly. Not a problem. We have to make sure our captain stays out of any real trouble, and pissing off the goddess of Flash is something that would certainly qualify, Lisa quipped. Though she gave him a hard time, he was one of them, and they always had each other's backs. Exactly. Now get out of here, go get changed and get Yoruichi. We'll have everything set up by the time you get back. And Ichigo, try to not make pissing her off a habit, Rukia added. Grumbling about, busting his chops and other complaints, Ichigo left to do as his lieutenant had recommended. Once gone, Lisa turned to Rukia and asked, "So, do we actually know what happened?" Before this past week, she hasn't spent one night away from him, and now they've barely seen each other. Knowing Ichigo, he'd never do anything to intentionally hurt her. I don't know, Rukia responded. He just came back from her mansion one day looking like a lost puppy and refused to speak about it. He just said that he'd pissed her off and was giving her time to cool down. Both women continued to talk about what could possibly have happened to cause such a reaction as they continued setting up what they had brought. As Ichigo shunpioed to his barracks in the dark of the early night, the event leading up to this moment was on a constant replay in his mind. Flashback. Ichigo looked up and down the hall quickly to make sure no one was around. Of course, he was stupid enough to get so caught up in their lust that he forgot to bring clothes to change into after his shower. Seeing that the coast was clear, he darted from the bathroom towards Yoruichi's room. When he finally arrived, he quickly darted inside and shut the door. A soft whistle from behind him made Ichigo jump. Nothing like a freshly washed berry, is there? Turning, he saw Yoruichi staring at him with a look that made his blood race. Well, it would have if they hadn't already made their blood race multiple times that night. With a light laugh, Ichigo tightened his towel around his waist and made his way to the closet to grab some clothes. "Cammy, I love this woman." Slyly winking at her, he quipped, "I wouldn't know kitten. I'm always far too focused on the beauty in front of me." Good answer. Though, I have to say that you're holding that towel a little too tight for my liking, Yoruichi replied mischievously. "We may just have to do something about that." Deciding to try out one of Urahara's many perverted comments, Ichigo playfully slapped his rear and said, "What can I say? I do have a pretty good ass." However, he wasn't prepared for what happened next. As soon as he leaned into the closet to grab some clothes, he heard the soft swish of a shunpo. Caught unawares, Ichigo yelped as he felt his towel snatched from him and a sharp slap on said ass, throwing him off balance. Loud giggling accompanied his ensuing crash into the back wall of the closet. The giggling was soon replaced by a loud gasp as Ichigo went through the wall, half of his body landing in a small compartment. Yoruichi tensed, as she had all but banished that compartment from her mind. Seeing it seemed to unleash a torrent of memories, none of which were desirable at this point. After Ichigo let out a few muttered curses and a couple of coughs from the dust stirred up, Yoruichi's blood felt like icy water as she heard him mumble, "Ow, wait, what the hell is this? Oh dear Cammy, no, not there. Why did he have to fall there? I don't need this now, not when things have been so great. Please, Ichigo, just get out of there and don't look around, please, don't find it." Tentatively, Yoruichi called out, "Are you okay, Ichigo?" She watched as his lower half started to move and he stood up, mostly obscured by the edge of the compartment. When he emerged, her fears were realized as Ichigo was carrying a sheathed wakizashi in his hands. Yoruichi. Yoruichi felt a paralyzingly dread over what was to come. The questions that she knew would come, and the answers that accompanied them, were something she wanted to avoid at all costs. Her own mind was being tormented, and she would not put that onto Ichigo. However, seeing the man she loved holding that, something within Yoruichi snapped. He was cut off as she snatched it out of his hands, roughly pushing him away from her, yelling, "Don't touch that." She quickly turned, as if shielding it from his view would make it magically disappear. "What the hell?" Ichigo yelled as he finally pulled some clothes on. He needed no explanation as to what that was. He could feel the energy practically screaming from it as soon as he had touched it. No, Ichigo was much more interested in why it was in a secret compartment, and why Yoruichi had reacted so violently. Not really sure what else to say, Ichigo asked, "Yoruichi, why is your Zanpakuto in a hidden compartment?" He was incredibly worried, though, as she turned to face him with tears in her eyes. "Ichigo, please, just forget you ever saw this. Just don't ask," she whispered, her voice breaking. This couldn't be happening. It just couldn't. Ichigo wanted nothing more than to stop her tears, but he could still hear the wordless cries from the sheathed blade and still felt the energy coming from it. His heart clenched as he wondered why she had hidden her blade. Given the condition of the room he had just climbed out of, he knew that it had been there for a long time. "What's wrong? Why are you crying? Why did you hide it away? Can't you hear it crying out?" His voice had gotten unintentionally higher with each question. He knew that his tone was terribly accusing, but the energy coming from the blade reminded him of his first battle with Kenpachi when his blade had been crying out and he couldn't fathom a reason to do that to a Zanpakuto. "He has no idea what he's asking, or what this blade has done in my hands. He has no clue about the memories that this blade brings back. Kami, why did he have to find this?" Stealing her nerves, Yoruichi forced all emotion from her voice when she replied. "Please, Ichigo, do not ask. I am well aware of my own Zanpakuto's call. This blade reminds me of a past that I would much rather forget, so please, no more questions. Just leave it alone, please. I can't do this right now." Looking up at him, Yoruichi could see the conflict in his eyes. He didn't want to upset her, but she knew that her blade's call was bothering him. She didn't have strength for this. She was barely able to keep herself in check under the onslaught of memories and grief-filled energy that the blade was currently emitting. She couldn't look at him anymore. Meeting his eyes now would be too much. Summoning her last bit of strength, she whispered, "I think you should stay at your barracks for a while. I need some time alone." Ichigo was beyond shocked. How did the night get to this point? They went from flirting and laughing, to Yoruichi looking like she was on the verge of a breakdown. So many questions were racing through his mind, but all were overridden by the hurt he felt from being pushed away. No matter how bad things were in her view, Ichigo never wanted her to feel alone or that she couldn't trust him. His protective nature kicked in, and as he stepped forward to hold and comfort her, he couldn't help but ask, "Why? What did I do to make you?" "I said go," she screamed, taking a step back and meeting his eyes in a half-crazed glare. The shock and hurt she saw come over his face nearly undid her there, but Yoruichi held on. She desperately wanted to curl up in Ichigo's arms now, but she could only handle so much. With the warring memories and screaming blade that were assaulting her consciousness, she needed some time to sort things out on her own. Lowering his hands, Ichigo stiffly nodded and quickly collected his things. Once fully dressed, he placed Zangetsu on his back and Shunpyo'd out of the room, the door slamming shut in the wake of his speed. Unable to hold her feelings in any more, a ragged sob escaped from Yoruichi's lips. This night had gone horribly, horribly wrong. Memories best left in the past had forced their way to the front of her consciousness, overriding everything else. Add to that the facts that her Zanpakuto was desperately crying out to her and she had just violently pushed away the man she loved, and Yoruichi collapsed onto her bed, clutching the short sword to her chest as she began to cry. Flashback end. Ichigo couldn't pretend to know what had hurt Yoruichi so, but he knew that his pushing of the issue was not helpful. He had talked for a while with Zangetsu and Shiro on the issue, both of whom encouraged him to give her the time she requested. After a week of mere glances of her going about her business, Ichigo couldn't stay away any longer. While he would respect her wishes and not push the issue of her Zanpakuto, he would be there for her in her time of need. Tonight, he had planned an evening together for the simple purpose of showing her that he was there for her in whatever capacity she needed. Quickly showering and changing into the kimono Yoruichi had made for him, he left the barracks and searched for her Reiatsu. Locating it in her room in the Shihoin estate, he quickly made his way to her door and knocked lightly. As the door opened, Ichigo was shocked at the appearance of his purple-haired goddess. Her hair was slightly messy, and she had dark circles under her eyes, which had none of the light he was used to. She looked exhausted, defeated and sad. Her eyes, however, widened in surprise as she took in Ichigo and his decorum. Before she could speak, Ichigo couldn't hold back and quickly swept her into his arms. Though he had planned on trying his best to be sweet and romantic for her, as her scent invaded his senses and he felt the warmth of her body, he couldn't help but blurt out, "Yoruichi. Kami, I have missed you. I'm sorry, Yoruichi, I am so sorry I pushed you. I don't know what's going on, but please, please just let me be here with you. I love you so much, Yoruichi, and no matter what happens I will always be here for you." Yoruichi was stunned. Ichigo was the last person she had expected to see. Why would he come? After the way she treated him, why would he even consider being around her? And what was with the kimono? He looked gorgeous, of course, but he wasn't the type to dress up for the hell of it. Before she could speak, she felt Ichigo embrace her tightly, blurting out apologies. However, as she heard him say he loved her, her heart melted. She had missed him so much this last week. She would have gone after him that same night, but she was too ashamed of how she had acted. How could she not be? Ichigo saw a side of her that night that no one else ever had, and Yoruichi was terrified that she had scared him off. Feeling the warmth of Ichigo's embrace, Yoruichi fought off tears yet again. "Kami, I don't deserve him. He is too good to me." Though she was overjoyed to see him, Yoruichi couldn't help but ask, "Ichigo, what are you doing here? I missed you too much, and I just had to see you. I'm sorry for that night. Please, forgive me, just don't push me away. I love you and will always be here for you," Ichigo blurted again. Now that she was in his arms, he couldn't seem to control his own mouth. "He is apologizing to me. Oh Ichigo, don't you dare accuse yourself. I was the idiot." Reaching her finger to his lips, she silenced him and looked up at him. His brown eyes were desperately searching hers, and she couldn't stop herself as she reached up and lightly kissed him. "I am the one that's sorry, Ichigo. I took out my frustration and pain of the past on you. You didn't deserve that. I'm so sorry. I've missed you too. I was just scared. It's been so long since." She was interrupted as Ichigo pressed his lips to hers. "You don't have to explain anything." Yoruichi opened her mouth to speak again, but Ichigo cut her off. "I mean it. No explanations necessary. However, I would really love it if you came with me tonight." Confusion spread on her face. "Come with you where? I see that you're dressed up, but why?" A small smile played on Ichigo's lips as he looked down at her confused expression. "It's a surprise. Ichigo, I'm a mess. I can't go anywhere like this," she stammered. Was he just going to act like nothing had happened? What was he planning? "You're perfect," he whispered as he drew her closer. "Now hold on tight." Yoruichi couldn't protest as Ichigo immediately shunpioed them away. Yoruichi was confused as Ichigo brought her to the entrance of the cave that they so frequently trained in. She remained silent as she let him lead her inside, but gasped at what she saw when they stopped. They were next to the hot springs, yet it was quite different than usual. Yoruichi looked around to see small, lit candles at the edge of the water. There was also a blanket laid out with a small basket on it and another small, black box next to it that she quickly recognized as a radio, as it was playing music softly. Turning, she saw a slightly blushing Ichigo scratching the back of his head. "I know I'm not really the romantic type. I had a little help in getting this together. I just wanted to get back to us. I don't know what happened in the past, but I know what I want for the present and the future. I'm sorry for the other night, but please, let me make it up to you." Wiping a much different type of tear from her eye, Yoruichi rushed up to him, wrapping her arms around his neck and crashing her lips to his. She had missed him so much, and to see that he was not only still wanting to be with her, but had gone to this trouble to make her feel better, warmed her heart. As their lips separated, she gave him a small smile and said, "There is nothing to make up for. Thank you so much Ichigo. I love you, and am sorry for what happened." Gesturing with her hand, she asked, "So what is all of this?" Reverting back to rubbing the back of his head, Ichigo said, "Well, I have some dinner, but I had N clogs make a radio for this world. I know you love to dance, so I wanted to do something special for you." Yoruichi's eyes widened. He went through all of this trouble, for her. After what she had done. Before she could decide how to respond to the now overwhelming urges to squeal like a girl or tackle him and kiss him senseless, Ichigo bowed and offered his hand, saying, "May I have this dance?" Squealing won. For the moment, Ichigo smiled widely at her reaction. He had been worried that this would be too cheesy or cliched, but was immensely relieved that she was responding. Taking her hand, he gently drew her to him as they began to dance to the music. After a while of swaying, spinning, and moving through the caverns to the music, Yoruichi felt infinitely better than she had all week. Though she couldn't erase the memories dredged up in the past week, she found a romantic evening with her Ichigo to be a perfect distraction. His gentleness when holding her, his soft caresses, and his tender kisses made her wonderfully oblivious to anything but the two of them. As their latest dance ended, her heart began to quicken as she found herself trapped in his gaze. How she had missed this. She didn't know how she lasted this long, but now that she was back in his arms, she wasn't letting go. Reaching up, she gave him a soft kiss. Quickly, the kiss began to deepen, both recognizing a need for each other, an ache that had acutely peaked now that they were holding each other once again. Slowly, as the kiss intensified, everything else melted away. Before long, both found themselves less their clothing, and in the steaming waters. Unlike the last time they had been together, there was a smoldering urgency between the two lovers. Neither could fully verbalize what they needed, yet both innately understood. Tonight was not a night of pure passion, nor was it simply an expression of love. Each lover had recognized their own needs, while simultaneously trying to address the others. For Yoruichi, tonight was about reclaiming her present. While her memories were potent, even more so as she had been so forcefully repressing them, they were simply memories. To allow ghostly images from her past to interfere with her present was no longer acceptable. As she trailed her lips and fingertips over the battle-hardened skin of her lover, each kiss, each bite, each caress was a reclamation and declaration of her present. Through her touches, she was sending a message to them both. "You are my present, Ichigo. You are my love. Figments of my mind and recollections of history are, and will always be, secondary to you." For Ichigo, tonight was a declaration of assurance. He knew that there were things in Yoruichi's past that haunted her. Even if he hadn't helped to bring them to the forefront of her mind, he knew that he would always be there to help bear that burden. As he grasped, kissed, tasted, and teased every inch of his lover's flawless, dark skin, Ichigo made each one as a promise to her. Every instance of contact was a response to her own declarations. "You are my future. I love and adore you. You will never have to bear anything alone. I will not allow memories to override our reality." When their smoldering urgency peaked, each looked into the other's eyes as the two slowly became one again. Desperately clinging to one another, each thrust, each cry was an emphatic affirmation of their own respective declarations. Along with their moans and cries, their eyes communicated their sincerity, as not once did either Ichigo nor Yoruichi break their loving gaze. For what seemed like an eternity, each lover poured every fiber themselves into the other. No words were said, the sounds of their passion being the only thing heard over the soft splashing of the water. As they finally reached their climax, both clung to each other as if their life depended on it, slowly relaxing and resting on the edge of the spring. After a while of comfortable silence, Yoruichi raised her head off of Ichigo's chest to meet his eyes. She would never understand the fortunate twist of fate that had led her to Ichigo, yet she knew she would always be grateful. A smile of true happiness spread across her lips as she softly whispered, "I love you, my Ichigo." Unable to hold back his answering smile, Ichigo simply replied, "And I love you, my Yoruichi. And I will not let you go." Urahara was right, I am definitely going to go talk to the old man soon. Very soon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.